I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. In last video, I automated power shards, and too many to actually use, and soon the extra will be making ionized fuel for my jetpack. I'm also using the power shards to create 10 alien power matrix per minute, which increases my power by another 140,000 megawatts. I now have over 500,000 megawatts, and I'm sure hoping that's enough. With all the nuclear pasta done and ready to be sent up to the space elevator, I have 3 last parts to make. I'm going to keep it pretty simple with the Biochemical Sculptors, but I'll be making a few more of the AI expansion servers. I'm saving the biggest project till last, for good reason. Today's new factory is going to be in the Grassy Fields. I'm definitely going to need that new train station out there now. But first, I'm actually going to start out here in the Spire coast. Like pretty much all of the endgame projects, there's a lot of pieces involved. Let's quickly go over the plan. I am going to take care of the Biochemical Sculptors, but the main project for this video is going to be the AI expansion servers. And here is the mess of the spreadsheet. I apologize if this ends up being a little bit confusing. This is one of the things where I think it's both a positive and it's a little confusing at the same time. I'm not nearly as familiar with Modeler, so you'll have to let me know in the comments if it does let you, but I know things like Satisfactory Tools doesn't have the option to let me sloop things. For most recipes in the game, it would just increase the power consumption by quite a bit, but it wouldn't really affect too much else, unless you were trying to sloop something in the middle of a production chain. Then obviously your numbers would get pretty thrown off. But this is one of those recipes that has a byproduct. So normally for the AI expansion server, if I was going to make 8 a minute, it would only produce 200 dark matter residue. But since I'm slooping this, it's going to produce double, which means I really need to make sure that I take care of all of that, because as soon as it backs up, then the whole thing shuts down. We've dealt with this a whole bunch of times by now. So this is where I was able to just manually type in the new amount. That was the easiest way I could come up with. I'm only going to be slooping this one recipe, and that's the only number that really makes a difference. So by slooping this will actually create 16 AI expansion servers. To make those, I need excited photonic matter, which is the easiest thing to make, magnetic field generators, which I already have 4 per minute being made, so I'm going to need to make another 4. The neural quantum processors is what the majority of the new factory is going to be making, because I already have the superposition oscillators being automated. The neural quantum processors, even though I've made a handful temporarily, I don't have those automated, so those need more of the excited photonic matter. Fixite trigons, which thankfully 120 I actually have laying around. Time crystals, and then supercomputers. And then as you can see, there's just a mix of standard and alternate recipes to make all of the other parts to make those things. Mainly the 8 supercomputers per minute. Just like all of the other factories that I've recently made that had dark matter residue as a byproduct, I'll be using the dark matter trap alternate recipe to make as many of the dark matter crystals as possible. So for that recipe and the neural quantum processors, I need a total of 160 time crystals per minute. Which brings us out here to the Spire coast. There is still plenty of oil out here, and I'm really hoping I don't need it for more power. I'm going to use 1600 of the crude oil out here, and then turn those right into time crystals. I haven't brought out the infrastructure quite yet, but the rail line ends just right over there, so it won't be too bad to get trains out here. And now I just need to find a couple nodes. And I'm pretty positive that that one there and that one here are both pure nodes, so I'm definitely going to use those two. Let's start over here. As much as I do love that new ionized fuel, it is just a whole lot easier to build with the fly mode on. Alright, so let's just go ahead and place an oil extractor, and yeah, I think that's probably a good height. And I normally skip through all of this, but well, we'll show it one more time just for fun. Then I grab a beam, a number of different things. You could use a road barrier as well. I just like the beam because I can stretch it out like this, which makes it easier to delete. And then I'm just going to nudge a foundation into the right spot, so it's just 1 meter past the box for the oil extractor. I go back 4 and delete the first 3. And I can also delete my beam. I have my minor foundation blueprint, and then I just line that up with this foundation, get the arrow pointed there. And now, holding E, I can switch to the oil extractor, put it in blueprint mode, and thankfully this one, unlike the normal miners, doesn't need to be nudged. And we just slap it down right there. Probably the set of blueprints I have gotten the most use out of. And it's really just because I just think the miners and the oil extractors look funny just sitting out on their own. The power shards are building up nicely. Definitely pull out some more of those, and we'll fully overclock this. I'm gonna have to clear out a couple of these, it looks like. I just need a little bit more space. So I think this being an 8 by 11 should be enough space. Because we're gonna start with the particle accelerators. And these are pretty big. So we get one there, and then we're just gonna nudge it over a few times so that things line up nicely. I may need to change the spacing a little bit, but for now I think this should be pretty close. The oil extractor is going to output 600. I just need one junction, and that can get split between the two particle accelerators, and then we're just going to set these for the oil-based diamonds. And these are just overclocked to 150%. 300, and they'll output 60. But it would be a lot easier if I just came up with a blueprint. All I need is one particle accelerator into 2 converters. And thankfully the Mark III blueprinter has just enough room to do it. And then I'm just going to space them out the same so that things just line up nicely. Even though I really don't need to, because pretty much all the belt work is taken care of for me. I just like the way that it lines up better. Just means I need a couple short beams to connect the two. And just like that, I have everything I need to turn 600 crude oil into 60 time crystals. Here's 60 of the time crystals. I can do this exact same thing to that pure node, so there's another 60. Brings me to 120. So for the last bit, I'm just going to come right over here, because here is a normal node, and then here is an impure. I'll be able to have the same setup over there, since one particle accelerator does 300. So that can just pair up with this one normal node, and then I'll just underclock the other one to deal with only 100 coming out of the impure. And just like that, we've got these two, those two, and then these two. Like I said, this one gets to be underclocked because it's only going to deal with 100, and then it only needs one converter that way. This produces the last 10, and then this just uses the same blueprint. Very basic particle accelerator, just into 2 converters, and that's why I love this recipe. Bean, what are you doing? Never fails. Well, if we look right through that archway, I zoom in a whole bunch, that is where the main train line ends. So next I am going to bring that out to here. What I think I'm going to do, if we take a look at a map here, let's turn off the resources. Train line ends right over here. What I'm going to do is have this go all the way through, and I'm probably just going to have this make a big loop. And I'll have this go all the way back down and connect to the main line that runs through the canyon. That way I can just branch off one line that comes down here, and then I'm going to put a train station just for these time crystals. If I end up needing the oil for anything else out here, I'll just build another train station, and that's probably where I'll put the portal. But I want this one to be kind of small and out of the way, because this way I think I can fit it just in this small area. Whereas if I was going to build a bigger train station, I'd probably put it out over the ocean, just because then I don't have to worry about space at all. And this biome looks so cool, so I don't really want to destroy a whole bunch and cover it up with a giant train station. That being said, I am going to cover up this little space right here though. I decided to work on the train station first, because then it would be a little bit easier trying to join up the line. That way I kind of know where the rail line needs to go. Figured that would be the easiest way to do this. Like I said, I wanted it to just be a real little guy. Using a lot of the asphalt foundations and then just fix it walls, because that way you can color it the easiest. I decided to make the colors time crystal themed, because for the most part they're just whitish gray, the fix it orange, and a little bit of black. The train will enter from this side, and then I still need to rename it, but we've just got the train station and then the one freight platform. And then I'd like to give it just a little bit of space, although I don't think that's quite enough space for the doors to actually close when the train is in here. But oh well, I think you actually need 2 foundations instead of 1.5. But I really like the way that it looks with the walls, set halfway in to the foundation. Or maybe it will still close. I guess we'll see. But if we go underneath, this is where the 2 pure lines come in, and this is where the last 40 comes in from. They all merge together. We've got just the small storage container, and then they load onto the train. I probably could have dropped this by a foundation. I didn't really need that much space underneath, but this is actually still lower than what the main rail line is at, I think, so it's still going to have to slightly change elevation to get over here and then merge back. But that's easy enough to deal with. Whatever I make changes to either the direction or elevation, the way I like to do it, because it's only going to be a slight elevation change. The gap in between these is pretty much always 12 foundations. Every once in a while I'll have to change it based on the terrain, but that's about as far as one rail line will stretch anyways, which makes it great because instead of just placing it, I can put it in the Blueprint Auto Connect, click it once, and now when I drag it over here, now I don't have to connect the rail lines at all. But when I want to change direction, since I normally go 12 foundations, the way I like to do it is then I'll go 6. And now this is where I'll pick the new direction to go. When I go to change the angle, I normally just take a foundation, and if you hold control, you can get it to snap on top of another foundation, and then using the mouse wheel, I can change the angle. Now, someone helpfully pointed out, you can do a similar thing with beams, which is really cool. I can take the beam and I can place it on the corner. I can only go in, 6 directions, up and down, and then the 4 directions based on the foundation. I can put it in diagonal, and I've got a little bit more free placement, or freeform, and then lots of free placement. And this can be really cool. However, I really wanted to keep it flat. So doing it this way, I haven't gotten quite good at getting it to go quite in the direction that I want and keep it flat. So I usually just stick with what I know, and then I'll just spin this to the direction that I want. I'll zoom it out 6, hit H, and then we'll just kind of see if that's the direction. This line, I want to go all the way past that set of rocks, and then it's going to curve back to the main rail line. Well, it looks pretty good. Now I can just have it locked in place. We nudge it, and then down 4. And now when I grab this one from the Blueprint Auto Connect, do the exact same thing. And now I go from this angle to this angle with a pretty smooth transition. Now the rail line curves right through here and then heads all the way around. I haven't quite gone through the last part and connected it, so I still need to do that last 20%. But I have the connecting rail lines here. I thought it would be good just to make sure, be able to have the train be able to enter from either side. I'm pretty sure it's only going to come from one side, but it's easy enough just to make this an intersection. I don't imagine there's going to be a whole lot of traffic out here. One thing I should remember to do, and just a good reminder, I have the signals included in this blueprint. Since I have right-hand drive, we want to do pass signals on the entrance to any of the intersections. So this one and then that one are now pass signal. But the way pass signals work, as opposed to the block signals, pass signals will stay red until something comes and cues them up. So as you can see, if we look out, all of the block signals just stay green unless the block is taken up. The path signal, on the other hand, stays red until something triggers it. And to trigger this path signal, a train needs to cross this block signal and enter into this block, essentially. So if I grab a block signal, we can see a train won't trigger it until it gets to the green. And if it's the first one to the intersection, it'll just change to green. If a different train had entered that purple first, then it's first come, first serve. That other train is going to go first, and then this one will turn to green. This is basically just to say that the train is going to slow down because it thinks it's going to have to stop at this red light. Although as soon as it gets to right here, that light is probably just going to turn green. So then it's going to be able to speed up. But since this distance is so short, it thinks it needs to stop. But what I can do is just delete this block signal. And now if I grab a block signal, it's changed colors because of course it has. But now this entire thing is purple. Now this path signal will get triggered once a train crosses way back there. So now this block to trigger the pass signal is much longer, and the train most likely won't have to slow down at all, and it'll keep things moving just a little bit quicker. So I'm going to do the same thing on both sides and delete that block signal. That should allow all trains that go through here to just travel a little bit faster. Well, I thought this train station was lower than the other one, but it turned out it was the other way around. The new train station is just a little bit higher. Like I said, I probably could have made it just a little bit lower, but that's okay. When you change the elevation and you curve at the same time, it works really well with the rails. So we just curve up to the new height, and then it heads on into the train station, and then we just do the same sort of thing down over here. Which means now I can come down here. I'm going to rearrange this so that the merger is just a little bit farther back. That way I can squeeze a smart splitter in here. And I'm just going to send all of it for now to a sink. That way I can just have this all running, and then when it's finally time to set up the train, all I need to do is just delete the smart splitter, and I've got all my time crystals ready to go. And this is where I would normally do the startup process, but I thought it would be a good idea to check my power grid. And oh no, what is going on? It's not fluctuating by a lot, but it's supposed to be completely flat. It would make the most sense if the issue was here, because the other power plants have been on and working for so long, and I guess I could have messed with the rocket power a little bit, but it's probably not that one. And if I come to the top floor, the Trigon's backing up, which is definitely a problem, because that's coming in on a sushi belt, so when that backs up, that prevents everything else from entering the factory. So this is a big problem. So it looks like we're full on these, so Fixonium is the one I'm running out of. And, well, it's got plenty of waste, and it looks like it's the singularity cells. 82%, that's not good. I'm only getting 25, 24. This needs 30. And, oh, the pasta. We're making 80% of the pasta here, so, okay, that's kind of what I was afraid of. I think these are all going to be working just fine. Yep. So my guess is, yeah, there is none in here. I need 5 per minute total to make all of this run, and instead of 1 per minute being brought in by train, I'm at 0. And when I come over to the factory that's supposed to be making that 1 pasta per minute, it's a lot of yellow when it should be white or green. Oh boy. Oh good, and because I have so many sushi belts, that has completely stopped my thermal propulsion rocket factory from working. And it started to back things up in this factory. Oh goody. It's going to take me a little while to trace back what actually went wrong, and I feel like it's important to figure that out. But the first step is getting all of this running so I can get that 1 pasta per minute sent back over there. But even if I could just snap my fingers and get everything restarted right now, filling up the train, getting that over there, and doing all of that is going to take some time. So I can slap a quick band-aid on this. I just have to hope my teleporter actually has singularity cells. Alright, because, yeah, they're kind of turning on and off right now because I don't have enough singularity cells. But I lucked out there. Since all of these particle accelerators are still working the way they're supposed to be, what I can do is we're just going to slap 1 in there. Now, this will be producing what it's supposed to be. But just to kind of give it a little bit of a buffer while I fix everything else, we're going to let it build up just a slight supply. And I'll just overcreate them by 1 per minute. The best part is once I get everything up and running, I can pull those summer sloops out there. So it's not a permanent band-aid, and I don't have to just sacrifice these summer sloops for good. But man, this really does help. It'll at least get the Fixonium up and running. But now I have to go through, probably start with the power plant machines and take out all of the extra material so that sushi belt can continue to run. I gotta go get the pasta up and running again, which is really just clearing out tons of machines. And like this one, I think we've backed up on the dark matter residue because those machines aren't running, which means I don't need as many crystals. And yeah, that's coming in on the sushi belt. The pros and cons of sushi belts. Once one thing crashes, ooh boy, your whole factory comes down even faster. And we're back. As you can see, factory is up and running. It's been about 2 hours, although I have kind of finished off the factory over at the Spire Coast. We just need to turn it on. But I wanted to clear out all the machines and then still come back here and make sure that it was still running. I'm not sure if I figured out exactly what crashed the whole thing, but I did find one really weird thing when I was clearing out all the machines. I'm pretty sure it was this smart splitter here. It splits off the radio control units and then everything else goes to the left. When I cleared out everything, this lift was full, but I cleared it all out, so there's nothing on this belt, and there was nothing in this lift or on this belt. But for whatever reason, it would not start flowing until I replaced this lift. So I don't know if it was because everything got all backed up and then it kind of freaked out, or, something just internally got weird with the smart splitter. I have no idea what happened. But to get everything started, I had to replace that lift, which does feel weird. So it's possible that this crashed earlier and then caused everything else to crash, but I don't know, it just doesn't quite feel right. Not really sure that that was the cause. But for now, everything is working. I'm going to keep a close eye on this for the next few hours while we build up the next real factory. And I'm sure if there's any other issues, they will probably pop up by then. Now we can finally get this part up and running. Like I mentioned, I already ran power throughout the whole thing, and then I just did a little bit of decorating. I didn't really want to enclose all of these because the particle accelerators are so tall anyways, they were just going to be really boxy looking buildings if I did. So instead, I'm just going to leave them open and use the good old floodlights. Since I already have power through everything, I figured it would be easiest if I went ahead and turned on the oil extractors, so all of these pipes are already full. I just went through and manually turned off all of the particle accelerators. So the way I'm going to do this, we're not going to do a stopwatch or anything. We're just going to turn one of them on, and then I'm going to let this completely fill up. Once it hits 50, now I'm going to turn it back off, let the pipe back up, and then we're going to turn this one on. And we're easily going to hit 50. And because this is trying to put out 600, but I'm only using 300, this is going to continuously back up. So we've got a little bit of a buffer built up inside the oil extractor. So now we can go ahead and just turn this one on too. And in not too long, I've got 60 time crystals out of this one, 60 out of this one, and 40 coming out of those two. One less converter means I only need one merger. These beans just love to live inside the converters. All 160 time crystals are being sent to a sink right now, but when I'm ready, I just need to delete that smart splitter in this sink and they'll go right onto the train. And the train lines are all set up, so this is going to be easy when it's time. This new train is going to head out to the Grassy Fields, so I will see you out there. Here we are in the Grassy Fields. In the last video, I added that train station right under the arch, and I mentioned that somewhere up here was probably going to be the main train station. And I'm still thinking that's probably where it's going to go. I think if I just build it in this area right here, it's not really going to cover a whole lot, and I can elevate it enough so if I do need to use those nodes, they're still available. And that way, it's at least a little bit out of the way. I don't want to have the trains travel too far to get to the train station, but I also want there to be at least a little bit of a gap so that, if they start to slow down to get into the train station, it's not going to slow down the traffic around the intersection. Let me get the rough foundations placed and we'll go from there. I decided to pick this section of track to make the intersection, which is a little questionable because this one curves ever so slightly, and it would be much easier if I picked a straight section. But this section right here, I'm actually able to go, if we turn on the compass, this is actually back onto the world grid as far as the direction. So this is aligned to north. And then it's just going to come up here. And then here we have the new train station. It definitely branches off far enough from the main rail line that it shouldn't cause any traffic issues. At least that's my hope. And then from up here, it should be pretty easy to just keep adding on train stations going this way. But I don't think I'll need too many out here. This also gives me plenty of room down here to do any sort of logistics coming in from the trains, any sort of belt work I need to do with the ore, all that good stuff. And because there's not really any nodes on this stretch that's going up here, kind of in between the lake and the void. So my plan is to put the factory just kind of going up this direction. Instead of making a typical tower, I think I'm just going to kind of tier it going up. And it'll do the same sort of thing where it just gets more complex as we go up and up. But it's not going to be quite an actual tower. More like a really long rectangle, but on a slope. And that should give me something fun to work around for the design and the aesthetics part. But the first thing I want to do is get my portal set up. Since that train station is only there as a pickup, there's no factory attached to it. Unless something goes wrong with it, which I don't really see what would go wrong. I don't really have a reason to go back there. But this train station, this one has a good reason to have a teleporter. So first thing I need to do is run some power. So I'm just going to clip this through the ground and then use the good old train station. Now it has power. Unfortunately, I can't just quickly go back to where I need to, so I am going to have to use my train or just fly all the way back. I might just jetpack over to there to that teleporter. That'd be faster. And I'm back in my portal tower. So next up is to find my empty one, which here's the Grassy Fields. Select linked portal. I forgot to name it. Well, I'll make sure when I'm back out there to just rename it just because. Thankfully, it's the only one available, and it shows you where it's going. So that's definitely the Grassy Fields. Now I just need to fuel it. And for that, I just need to go down one level. Currently, I've got 2 empty portals that I'm not using, and those singularity cells are just being merged up and going into a sink. So we just need to delete this one and send it on in. Ah, it's a great animation and sound effects. I love it. Well done, Coffee Stain. So now, I can just quickly head right back out to the Grassy Fields. Oh, portals are amazing. But now that I have this set up, I think I should actually pivot just slightly, and let's get the Biochemical Sculptors knocked out. So since I can quickly get back out here and get started on this project again, I'm actually going to take the next portal over, head out to the Desert Canyon Titan Forest. I do love this part of this train station. I think I should try to do this more often. It is a little bit weird to do because I basically have a logistics floor underneath the train station, and that's where I do all of the load balancing for the incoming and outgoing things out of the storage containers. And then I have another logistics floor above this where they actually get split. Because things like the quick wire are going to multiple places, I think the copper sheets are as well, and so it was just easier to do it in 2 different places. But I do really like this look. And we're going to add a little bit more to it. So here is the plan for the Biochemical Sculptors. I'm going to be making a whopping 2 per minute, which is just 1 machine at 100%. If we head up to the actual manufacturing floor, this little guy tucked over in the corner is making my 0.5 assembly director systems per minute, which is all I need to be able to make 2 biochemical sculptors per minute. And the great thing about this recipe is now I just need to add the trigons and water. And if I just punch a hole through a window real quick and we head straight down, well, lo and behold, we've got water about as close as I could ask for. Honestly, I couldn't have planned this out better if I tried, and I did not plan this out. I just got super lucky. Now I can just slap down the resource well pressurizer. So this is super convenient, and thankfully I'm at the end game and I've got so much power, I don't have to worry about it. But this is going to be the most expensive 10 meters cubed of water that I have in the game, because I'm probably not going to use this thing for anything else. So as far as power goes, this is not efficient at all. But it's just way too convenient not to use. And so all I need to do is just add a blender out here. The water's down below, that's going to be easy. And the trigons, well, that's going to be pretty easy too. When I first got into phase 5, which already feels like so long ago that I built this, I built this to make way more trigons than I actually need to be going to my storage. I've currently got 3 constructors fully overclocked, so each one is outputting 75 trigons. So here's a total of 225. I don't need anywhere close to that much to be going just to my dimensional depot. So what I'm going to do is just rearrange this entire top floor, I think. Instead of this setup, I'm going to go with 2 of the bigger storage containers topped with the dimensional depots. Because as we can see, I've got 43 Mercer spheres, so I can build another 43 of these. I definitely don't even need that many. And that way, because the production going into the storage is going to be so much less, I'll just have a much bigger buffer. So if I do come across a time where I'm just spamming out lots of Mark 6 belts, I should be fine. So out of the 225, I am just going to split one of these into thirds so that 25 goes to my storage and my dimensional depots, and then the other 200, I've already added a bunch of the mounts. Now I can go back and add the belt, and that will head back into the train station, because why wouldn't I want to just add more and more chaos to this train station? It's clearly not busy enough. There we go. Things are just rearranged ever so slightly. I've got my storage and my dimensional depots set up, and so those are still filling up, and it'll take a little while. And then we've got the sink for when that's eventually going to fill up. Even at 25 per minute, in the long run, I'm still just not going to use that many. The other 200 are just dropping straight down here, and then heading on their way. Let's follow these back to the train station. Once we get here, they just head on in. And then I just needed a really simple load balancer. I've got 200, and I needed 40 to go to this new train. So here's the very familiar 5-way split, the merger into 2 splitters. There's the 3/5, and then here we've got the 4th and 5th, and then this is the part that loops back. So 1/5 of 200 would be our 40, and so that heads on and right into a small storage container, and then that's going to go up to the 2nd floor. Because I would really prefer not to add on more train stations, because this one's already pretty full. If I can, I would like to double up on a couple of these. So the second one here actually doesn't have a very big train that comes, and it's only picking up 1 pasta per minute. So it's really easy to just add those extra directions for the train. So now it will only pick up pasta, and then the second train that comes here is only going to pick up trigons. And then that way they just won't pick up from the wrong freight platform. I don't really know how much I'm going to dress this area up. I just kind of covered it with concrete. I've got the one little satellite thing on there. It needs 1 pump here, and then I think once we get up into the logistics floor, I needed 1 more. But it's pretty easy. I just needed to take this up through a couple floors to the blender. I definitely don't have as many train stations, but I'm kind of running into the same problem. The reason I ran the pipe just straight up through the middle of this spot right here is there isn't actually enough room to fit in a train station, well, easily anyways. I could just barely squeeze it in, and maybe if I offset them, then the lifts wouldn't run into each other. But I don't like that. If I was going to add another train station, I'd want to extend this, and, well, I just don't really want to. Because I'm using all of the freight platforms in these 2 train stations, that leaves me with this one. Again, this was my personal train station, but now that I've got portals, I really don't need it. This one right here is going to do my trigons. So we're going to drop that down. And then I just have a very simple load balancer. We'll have 60 go into here. 20 and 20 gives me the 40. Now I just need to add a few floor holes and a couple lifts and get that routed up to the blender. I went ahead and got the train running. So now we can take a look, and got a nice little stockpile built up. Let's go ahead and get this started. Now, it is going to take probably a minute or 2 for those trigons to show up. So in the meantime, I've got 627 extra of those assembly director systems. Let's get a nice little short boost of points. 175 million points per coupon now. Yeah, they're starting to get a little expensive. But hey, that's a nice little increase for a short amount of time. Go ahead and delete this and get these sent in. As far as the output goes, that's going to go into the smart splitter. Once that fills up, then these are going to go this way. And now this is just going to plug right into there. That will head on its way and go to the main sink on this floor. And there they are. My first 4. These are pretty cool looking, actually. It's like a lava lamp of... I probably don't want to know what's inside there. Well, since we're at the end of the game here, it really kind of makes sense to sloop these last ones, right? So instead of 4, I can get 8. You know, I've been thinking about it, and if I'm willing to spend 4 summer sloops to double this, because I mean, why wouldn't I? My focus is definitely going to be on the other 2 more than this one, but these are still worth a good amount of coupon points. And since this machine is at 100%, I think it probably only makes sense to... Oh, that bug's always fun. To come over to here, because now I only need 2 summer sloops, and now I can get this to 1. Which will let me throw 2 power shards into here, and then I can go from 8 to 16. There's more than enough water in this pipe already, so that's already done. And over at the Trigon area, the way I split it off, I did it in fifths, so I can just change it from 40 to 80 super easily. So I think that's going to be 6 summer sloops well spent. And with the good old portals, I can just run downstairs and quickly get over to the Trigons and switch that one belt around. And because the trip is so short, it shouldn't take that long for the train to be able to catch up. I got everything switched over, and it really didn't take too long. I do have that train waiting, I think, 20 minutes, so there was a little bit of lag time. But now, this is popping out 8 every 60 seconds. I need 1,000, and let's be honest, even if I was going to make the original 2 per minute like I was planning at the start, it would still finish in plenty of time before I finished the next 2 factories. But now at 8 per minute, only 125 minutes, I'll barely have started on the AI expansion server factory. According to the wiki, each one of these is worth a little over 300,000 points. So this will fill up in a matter of no time, and then I'll have an extra 2.4 million points per minute. Not too bad for, honestly, just extra parts. This machine is now intaking 80 of the Trigons per minute, but over at that other train station, I was sending 200 over there. So 80 are going here, which still leaves me with 120, which happens to be the exact amount I need for the next factory. Which is what we're going to work on now. I'm going to head downstairs to my portal, and I will see you back in the Grassy Fields. Here is the rough outline for the first 2 sections, we'll call them. And I'm just going to continue this pattern, just kind of up this hill until we finish building the factory. There's a good chance that some of these floors or, areas may need to get a little bit wider. This first one won't need to be too big, so that's why I'm going to keep it this size. If I don't have to go past this rock, that would be nice because I didn't quite make this section high enough. So if I do need to expand over it, then I'm just going to have to build that up. But hey, just something fun to work around. I'm going to start with the smelters and the foundries, and then we'll go to the constructors, and we'll just keep getting more and more complex as we go through the factory. Looking at it this way, the left-hand side of the factory is going to be where I have kind of the main bus. There will be a number of items that are coming from the train that are going to need to go all the way to probably the very final step or close to it. Hopefully it'll all be able to fit on one sushi belt, but I'll just have to see. I'm going to leave 2 foundations of a gap there. Actually, we need to do a little bit of load balancing, not for the very first one, but for the next 2. So that should be enough space. And then just one of the blueprints of the 4 smelters. Here are all of the smelters, and these are all going to be doing the iron ingots. Now, I decided to just go with the easy option. Because of the recipes that I chose to use, I need a total of 283.5 iron ore. So I could have just used one node to do this. Load balancing the 0.5 really wouldn't be too bad. I mean, this right here is half of 75. So you get to 75, you split it in half. There you go. But I'm also just sitting on top of all of these impure nodes. So what I could do is just have one of them be set to 37.5, and then these 4 are going to take care of the 246. I'm not going to run out of iron in this playthrough, and they're just right here. It's just so easy to do. Saves me just a tiny bit of load balancing, and there's going to be plenty of it throughout the factory. So there's the 37.5, and then these will be 246 divided by 4. 61.5. Well, I think I can already tell my plan of not going over this rock is going to go out the window, but that's alright. Probably just going to have to add on one more here. And if I have to work around it, that's fine. These 4 foundries are going to be doing the copper alloy ingot. 916 across 4 machines, 29 each. Most of the time, I kind of work on just getting all the machines in place, and then I kind of go back through and do some of the more of the load balancing, and then finally do the belt work. Since I'm building out the factory going this direction, I think it's going to be best to make sure that I have enough space for the load balancing. So let's kind of make sure we get the next steps done. This first one, however, is going to be easy. I just need 1 constructor, and we can just put it right in front. This is just using the default iron plate recipe, and I need 25. There's the 37.5. All right, so there's the iron plates taken care of. The 246 iron ingots are going to get split. 216 are going to iron pipes, and a whopping 30 are going to go to iron rods. I can reduce all of this by dividing by 6, so 41 gets split 36 and 5. And we're just going to follow the diagram, so we'll do a merger, followed by 5 splitters. Let's go ahead and start on the left. So from the top, we've got 1 merger, and these ones I'm going to space them out just 2 meters instead of 1, just to make sure I've got enough space for any lifts and stuff that I need. And then we skip 2 of them, and then there's a splitter next to this one. And then a merger at the bottom. And then on this side, to make sure we have enough space, let's go ahead and start out here. There's a merger next to the second one down. And then this one is going to go out 1 spot further. This one will be facing forward. We skip 1, and then there's 1 last merger right here. Now to make sure that I have the correct belt speeds, I just need to multiply all these numbers by 6. So we've got 246 going into here, but I'm going to end up looping back 42. So this is going to end up being 288. I'm going to split that into thirds. So 96 going each way. There, there, and then for the last one, we'll just use a good old short lift. Although I didn't give myself too much space on this side, so what I'm going to have to do is nudge this over by 1 meter so I can make the lift a little bit shorter. Now the trick with this is, if I clip it to the bottom, it's going to clip into that merger. But if I connect it to the merger first and then connect it to the bottom, it cuts off that accordion into there. Now I can just delete that. Make sure it's Mark II belt. And make sure there's a Mark II lift. There we go. Nice and snug. And now we're going to split this in half a bunch of times. So 48 and 48. 24, 24. 12 and 12. And 6 and 6. So with this 48 that got plugged into here, we split that in half again. So there's 24. All right, out of here is 30. The other 24 goes into this merger. And actually, what I can do is, let's simplify this a little bit. I know on the diagram it shows connecting this one to here. What I could do is just not have that merger. This is 24. And then the remaining amount, still going to have to do the shorter lift. So it's only 3 meters instead of the normal 4. I'm going to snap it to this first, spin it around. But then I'm just going to have this plug into the other side of this merger. Actually, I take that back. This needs to go up and over. Same thing, we're just going to nudge this up by 2 meters. And I do that instead of just normally placing it so that I can get rid of the accordion and it won't clip into that belt at all. It's a little bit more straightforward and it saves me placing another merger. Not like it really matters at this point. Oops, so I forgot to... Didn't quite do that right, did I? There we go. And then out of here is my 216. Easy enough. Move on to the copper. The copper is going to be a little bit more interesting. I have 916, 384 goes to copper sheets, 317 goes to wire, and 215 go to fused quick wire. I'm sure there are just so many different ways you could go about splitting this up. Whenever you're splitting it to more than 2 different places, it can get a little bit tricky. And that's what I originally tried because it's usually easier if I can just kind of do it all in one go. But trying to combine all 916 and then resplit it off into the 3 different places, I just could not figure out a way that it wasn't just gigantic. And even for me, it looked awful to build. So I decided to just scrap that idea, and I'm not going to merge all of the foundries together. Instead, we're going to just work off of the output of one machine, and I think that is going to be just a little bit easier to do. So on this first one, what I'm going to do is take the 229, and I'm going to split off the 215. And then that 14 is going to get combined with the output of this one. And then I'm going to do another load balancer on this one. So let's just work on this first one, and then hopefully it'll make more sense. So since 229 is not a great number, we're going to start with a merger. And then, like so many of these, 5 splitters in a row. And then we finished off with a 5-way split, so a merger and 2 splitters. Just enough space. Oh, you gotta love it. On the left, I'm just gonna give them the 2-meter gap, and we've got 2 mergers. We're gonna skip 1, 2, 3. On the 4th one back, we're gonna place a splitter. Need to make sure its input is facing that splitter, and then follow it up with 1 merger. On this side, we'll start next to the first splitter, and all of these are gonna be facing this way. We've got 2 mergers, and then we skip 1, and then 2 more mergers. 229 from the machine into the merger, but like I said, 229, not a great number. So we're gonna loop back 11 so that we can work with 240. Split that 3 ways, and that's 80 on each one. And now we're just gonna split it in half over and over again until we get to that 5-way split. And here we are to the merger. So we're down to 5. So this is going to become 6, 3, and 3. 1. 1 needs to loop back to the merger. And then the very last one, just going to get ourselves a short lift. And it's going to connect to this merger, which is the 11 getting looped back. And for this merger, I'm actually going to spin this sideways. There we go. So out of here, I've got my 215. That will head on to the fused quick wire recipe. And then the leftover 14 is going to get grouped up with this one, which is probably going to be something like this. So that machine is also putting out 229, and now I have 14. So now I am up to 243, but I need it to be either 317 or 384. So now if I do a little bit of load balancing off this one, I can have the correct amount go to that one, and then the leftover amount will combine with this 229, and that should give me the correct amount for the last recipe. All right, so this one is going to look very similar to that one, especially here in the beginning. So we've got a merger, 5 splitters, and then the 5-way split again. And then on this side with the mergers, we start with the second splitter. And I actually think I need to give this a little bit more space. It's 3 meters instead of the 2. 2 mergers there. And then one very last one here at the top. And spin it so it points towards that merger. On this side, we've got a merger next to the second one from the top. Skip 1, 1 merger here. And then we go out to this side. And then this merger is facing backwards. This part is the one that gets looped all the way to the beginning. 229, which will become 240. 80, 80, and then this 80 goes to this merger. And again, we just split it in half a whole bunch of times. Instead of having this merger out here, I mean, it's the easiest to display it on that diagram. What I'm actually going to do is just place this merger right on top, because I only need one, and that's just way easier. That right there is 10. There we've got 5, and then this 5 goes into the 5-way split. Becomes 6. So we're going to loop this part back. 3 and 3. This one goes to here. Our mark 3. Here is 141, which brings this one to the 384. That will be used to make copper sheets. And then on this side, there's 3, there's 85. So this 88 combined with the 229 here, this gives me the 317 I need for wire. Oh, and we can't forget, got to use all 3 outputs for this. And that plugs into here. Straight mode is so special. Here is the 11 that needs to get looped back. So we just add one more to that first merger. I've got my iron and copper smelting taken care of. Now I can move on to the constructors, which is going to be on this part right here. So I want to keep things going in as straight lines as possible. And I mean, straight lines completely is just not going to happen unless you want to space things out a lot. But trying to prevent things from having to cross over just all over the place and create needless spaghetti, I'm okay with the organized chaos. So we'll try to keep it as neat and tidy as I can. But that means we're going to have to put some things in some fun order. The first thing we're going to do is get this one lined up. So this input should line up with that constructor. So at least that one can be a straight line. And we'll just kind of go from there. All of the iron plates are being turned into the reinforced iron plates using the stitched iron alternate recipe. This is a great recipe. I usually go with the default recipe, oddly enough. And it's normally to cut out the wire. And it's not because I prefer screws over wire necessarily. It's because I like making the reinforced iron plates out of only iron if I can. Because I was going to need copper here, I figured I might as well just use it to make wire because it's much easier. Yes, iron wire is a thing, but the 5:9 ratio is rarely ever convenient for me. This is usually just so much easier to work with. But I am making wire here, so I figured it was a good time to take advantage of the stitched iron plate. Which is also why this machine is just kind of off on its own, because needing this number of iron plates needed that half of an ingot. Those pesky decimal points getting in the way. So we're going to start with this one, and this is going to output 7.5. There's the 25 iron plates. I just need to plug in 50 wire. Which again, I normally try to avoid the decimal points, but with this factory, I kept it to 0.5, so that's pretty easy to work with. And next, I'm going to place 2 constructors. This one is going to be making the iron rods, and I need 30 per minute. And then this last constructor is taking care of the bulk of the iron ingots with the good old iron pipe recipe. This recipe just chugs through iron ingots, but it is really nice just not having to deal with coal or petroleum coke, I guess. And I need 54 of those steel pipes per minute. And then I can go ahead and just place the next step for these. All of the reinforced iron plates and all of those rods are going into one assembler. And let's switch this to the just good old default modular frame recipe. Completely overclocked, this will intake the 7.5 and the 30. Somehow I accidentally slooped it, and I'll make my 5 modular frames. Let me make sure I didn't accidentally sloop any of these. Alright, just fat fingered the numbers. But for the bell work on this part, pretty straightforward. Most of this one gets to be a completely straight line. The other ones, not so much. I think it'd be nicer to have a straight section going into the machine. So we'll just drop these down like this one. Maybe I'll spin that. Alright, that's a good start. Now I just need wire for this, and well, there's a few things I need to do with all this copper. First up, the wire, and I need 9 constructors, so I'm going to use my 3 constructor blueprint and just slam down 3 of these. And I am going to have to make this floor a little bit bigger, I think. But I've got plenty of space. This is going to be making the standard wire, 634 across 9 machines, 70 and 4 nights. I do love my load balancing with powers of 2s and 3s because the symmetry is just so great. Place one there, one here, and then this needs the 317, which should be coming out of that one right there. So we'll just place it like this. Yeah, there we go. And each of these machines are outputting 70.4 repeating. So let's change all this to Mark II. And then Mark III into this one. Once I've got all 634, then I can do a little bit of load balancing. But let's get the rest of the machines down right here. Again, I think I need some more space. Lastly, for constructors, I need 8 for the copper sheets. And for some reason, I still don't have a 4 constructor blueprint, so we'll just bam down a couple of the 2s. 192 across 8 machines, 24 in each one. And this is where the 384 will get plugged into. Now, the copper sheets are all getting grouped together, and they're all going to the same thing, so I don't need to do any load balancing with these. That's the copper sheets taken care of. But the wire, however, I do need to split. So here is the diagram, because I was able to at least reduce everything by 2. If you multiply by 2, those are all the correct numbers. And this very beginning is going to look pretty similar. We're going to do a merger, 5 splitters. And then the good old 5-way split. Merger, 2 splitters. Oh, and just enough space for this to be the next wall, basically. Terrific. Starting here at the beginning, next to the first splitter, we're going to place another splitter, followed by a merger. And then we'll go 1 spacing out farther. Skip 1, and it's going to be in line with that splitter. And then this one is also going to get grouped up with the very last one. Alright, and going to the left, let's go back to the beginning. Next to the second splitter, we get a merger. And this one is going to be the one that goes back to the merger, so we're going to face this one back. And then next spot over, we're going to skip 1, 2, and next to the third one. And that should be all the mergers and splitters, and just a few belts. Like I said, we just multiply all the numbers by 2, so instead of 317, this is 634, but that's not the best number to work with, so we're going to end up looping back 86 so that I can work with 720 out of here. You divide 720 by 3, and you've got 240, 240, and this 240 is actually one of the amounts that I need. 240 wire is needed for the classic battery alternate recipe. We're going to do one more 3-way split, so 80, 80, and 80. This 240 is also getting split in half, so here is 120, and then this 120 is going to go up to this merger. And so now out of here, I've got 120 plus the 80. Here is my 200 that I need for the super state computer alternate recipe. And I'm probably going to end up just having that one go out of here like this. So let's just put the lift there for now. I'm going to end up coming back through and placing a bunch of display signs just to make sure, and probably some of the throughput monitors. That way I know that the right numbers of things are going where they're supposed to be going. So I know I usually have the dotted lines are the ones that go up and over, but I think I'm going to switch some of these around. So this 40 that's going into there, I'm just going to have that go straight on the ground. 40 there. We're going to do 20 and 20, 10 and 10. And then with this 10, we just do a 5-way split. So we're going to loop this one back around. Got 5. And then on this 5, this is where we're going to go up and over. That needs to plug into this merger right here. Plug in there to there, and there's the 5. And then this is also probably just going to get a lift out of here. And here is the 86. Yeah, that was 6, not 5. 86 that's getting looped back. And then up here, we've got 2, 2, and this is 140. And so here is the 144 wire that I need for stators. And let's see, out of this guy right here, let's actually turn this one sideways. This right here is my 50. So this is going to come all the way around and plug into here. There's the 50 wire, and then the 3 other amounts that I need to go on to the future sections of the factory. But since I've still got a good amount of space, especially right here, and I don't need to do any load balancing with these, might as well put one more set of machines down here. Everything else past this is going to need, one of these parts. But there's one last recipe that still needs ingots, so I would like to get that taken care of in this section here. And for that, I just need 3 assemblers. So I think, yeah, I can have a belt just go like right through here. And that'll be the copper ingots that I need. Yeah, I think that sounds good. These 3 will be doing the fused quick wire. 516, so 172 each. That'll take the 215 copper ingots, and then I'm going to be bringing in 43 Caterium ingots by train. So this one can just come from right over here, and then I'll figure out a way to make that look good. Yeah, I like that. And then the Caterium will be able to, I'll just use a stubby lift or whatever probably. But that will come from over here, and it'll just get branched off from that sushi belt. 43 ingots will definitely fit on there. All right, so let me build out some more foundations and probably tidy this up a little bit. And we'll move on to more assemblers. I've got a little bit more space to work with. I went through and cleaned up a bunch of the belt work and added a bunch of signs, so at least now I know which amounts are supposed to be on the belts, and then I'll just need to add the throughput monitor still. This is one of the parts that I love most about this design of the factory, is I get to see all of the parts going up the lifts from one kind of section to the next. Which brings me to this section. These 3 assemblers are going to be outputting my 516 quick wire, and I need to split that 336 and 180. And so here's our diagram. If I divide all of those numbers by 12, that's what we've got here. So since we're going to start with a merger, I'm going to put the merger right at the very edge. And then that way it makes it easy to just drop this lift down. All right, and then, well, just like all the rest of them, it seems, 5 splitters in a row. And then to group everything up, I just need 3 mergers. So the first one is going to be next to the 3rd splitter. And then on the left-hand side, we have one next to the same one, but this one is going to be facing backwards. And then the last one can be out here. Now we just fill in all of the belts. So this 48 is actually going to be 576. 288 and 288. And we're going to split this one in half as well, although one of these needs to go back to here. And I think I'll probably use the lift for that just so I can keep this one on the ground. 5 times 12 is 60, so that one can just be a Mark 1 belt. This one's getting split 3 ways, so each one of these is 48. And with the way I've arranged this, I think it'll be easiest to do a short lift up and over this section. Just a couple lifts to get up and over things, so there's no clipping. And we're all set. Out of this merger is my 180, and that's going to be going to the plastic AI limiters. And out of this merger is the 336, which will be used to make Caterium computers. Now that I've got that load balancing done, let's go ahead and place the other machines that I need on either side of this. I need 6 assemblers to make all of my circuit boards, so I'm going to use my 3 assembler blueprint and my 3 assemblers B. It's pretty much the exact same thing. It just has the splitters staggered in a different direction. For this, I just need 2 splitters here in the middle. And let's set the recipe. Just using the good old default circuit boards. Each one will produce 16. Oh, let's make these a fun green. That's better. These are going to intake all of the copper sheets, and then I'm going to need to do just a little bit of load balancing for the plastic. Plastic is 64, so I need to make sure that I change all of these to Mark II. Do Mark III on the bottom. We'll be able to bring in all of the copper sheets, but I'll figure out how exactly I'm plugging in the plastic and the copper sheets later. Just get them close for now. Let's place the rest of the machines. For the next set of machines, I'm going to start all the way over here. And I'm just going to need 2 sets of my 2 assembler blueprint. And then just one last lone assembler by itself. Make sure everything's nice and even. Alright, let's set some recipes. I actually forgot one step. There needs to be one more machine in here. Just a lone assembler. All of the modular frames are going to go right into here, so I'm probably going to make these short lifts, but we'll just go up and over this one. And this is going to be making the versatile framework, and I need 10 per minute. These versatile framework are going to use a lift, and they're going to go up to these ones, which are going to be making more of the magnetic field generators. I need 4 more in total, so 2 for each one of these. The next 2 are going to be taking all of these. So same thing, I'm going to need to get a lift and go up and over. But all of the steel pipes are going to make their way to these 2 machines, which are going to be making stators using the default. 18 in total, 9 for each one. And then the last machine here is going to be taking some of the quick wire. And it is going to be doing the plastic AI limiter. 12 of those. And then lastly, I'm going to join these and this into 2 more assemblers into the electromagnetic control rods. Each machine will make 6. So we can put the stators into the bottom one, and then we'll just do a short lift, and I'll get the AI limiters to plug into there. And that's all of the assemblers I needed in here. So let me clean this up, get the quick belts in that I need, and I'll add the next section so we can move on to the manufacturers. The next section of foundations have been added. I filled in the missing belts and lifts, and the one thing that I decided to change, instead of going up and over, this one I decided to just go underneath. So it didn't have too far to go. It's just coming from right on the other side of this load balancer. This one right here. But the reason being is this 200 is still going to need to go to a future part of the factory. And so if that part is going to cut through here, I thought it might just get too messy. So to try to keep things a little bit cleaner, that's probably the one section that'll go underneath. I just like being able to see everything moving around. And then I just needed to add a tiny bit of load balancing that I kind of forgot about. So the electromagnetic control rods need to go to 2 different places. Each one of these machines is outputting 6. The magnetic field generators, and I need 4 in total for the electromagnetic control rods. So we just split that one into thirds, regroup 2 of them, and here's the 4 that loops back over to here to make these. Now we can move on to the big machines. Alright, so this right here is my center point. And thankfully, I don't need too many machines. I'm going to do a row of 5, and it's going to get grouped into a group of 3 and a group of 2 for the 2 different recipes. So just to get things lined up, that's easiest if I just place this. Now I know where to put this one, and now I can get this lined up how I want it. So I want the splitters lined up right with the foundation. And now I'm going to replace this one. The beams in the blueprint definitely help to line these up just a little bit quicker. And then we'll do the right hand side. So that will do the 3. And then for the 2, I just need a right and a left. And then a stack of 4 splitters in the middle. A set of 2 manufacturers are going to be doing my batteries. So these ones, I need to select my classic battery recipe. If you're going to make batteries, I highly recommend making them this way. It's just so much easier dealing with all solids than having to deal with the liquids in the blender, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure resource-wise, this is probably better too. Each one will make 40, so 80 in total. And then the other 3 over here are going to be making computers using the Caterium computer alternate. And each one will make 8, for 24 in total. And with these, oh, actually I didn't need the very top belt. The computers, I only need 3 inputs. So we've got the circuit board down below, We've got the quick wire down below, and then the rubber will be coming in from the sushi belt that will be running up the side. And then for the batteries, the sulfur, the aluminum sheets, and the plastic are all going to be coming from the sushi belt. And then the wire is coming from down below. So I just need to route those up to here. And then from here, I've got a few more machines I want to build before we go up any farther. First thing I'm going to add is 2 more of the manufacturers. And just a stack of all 4. I know I'm definitely going to need all 4. These are making my supercomputers. Except for, that's not the recipe I want to use. Oh, look at that. I didn't even realize I got both of them on the same hard drive. We are going to be using the super state computer. Each one will make 4. So this will take the computers. This is where the other electromagnetic control rods are going. All of the batteries are going here. And then the last bit of wire is going to come to here. So these are going to plug in, I think, like the 3rd spot. And we'll have the batteries come down here, and they'll end up plugging in. I think these might be the fastest ones. No, the wire is going to plug in at the bottom. So this one will just need a stubby lift, and I'll plug it in the 2nd spot. And in this area, we move on from the manufacturers to the good old quantum encoders and converters. Alright, so just to get my spacing right, I think the converters go next. Get them centered right in the very center of this floor. So one is going to go there, and then the other one, I'm just going to slam right up next to it and just completely block all of the inputs. Because who needs them? And then next to these are going to go the quantum encoders, and I think I'm going to have to give myself even more space. May have to play around with the spacing a little bit, but let's go ahead and set these recipes. These are obviously making the excited photonic matter. No input, so I can just completely block those. This right here is going to be feeding, well, let's set this recipe, the neural quantum processors. I need 8 in total, so we'll make 4 on each one. So each one needs a total of 100, so I think that means I get to just leave this clocked at 100%. Perfect. So that will feed both of these, and then if we take a look, so the supercomputers are coming from right next door. The trigons and the time crystals will both be coming from the sushi belt that'll be running up the side. All right, you know the drill. I'll be right back. You know, I think the factory's coming along pretty nicely. I think it's going to look really cool seeing all of the parts just kind of flowing up the factory. So I've got most of the belt and lifts in that I can kind of place now. The parts that are actually being made, like the circuit boards, are going from where they need to go to the next step. I obviously just have a whole bunch of things to bring in by the sushi belt and the trains. But we have just a couple more machines to place. So let me grab another quantum encoder. And this one, I'm going to line one of the inputs up with this belt right here. Have it be that one. Because this belt is coming from all the way down here. These are making the magnetic field generators. Those will head this way. And I'm going to do the exact same thing here. And we can connect those. Because this is doing the AI expansion server. And let's add a few more of these. Overclock to 200%. This machine will make 8. And then we're going to sloop it. So this is going to make my 16 per minute. So I've got to deal with that 400 dark matter residue. And keep in mind, I also have dark matter residue from both of these quantum encoders. Alright, and you probably know where this is going. I just need 3 of the particle accelerators so I can make my dark matter trap. That is the most efficient use of my dark matter residue if I just want lots of the dark matter crystals. And I do. This is a great factory because I actually don't need any of these. And so for now, they're definitely going to all be sunk. But like I've said with all of the other factories, eventually, they're all going to come in handy. So I'm using 3 machines because using 2 is just going to be way too hard. By just the numbers, I could deal with only having 2 of the particle accelerators. But just like when I was dealing with the power shards and the alien power matrix, it's just going to be so much easier to keep some of these separate. So since each one of these machines output 100. So between these two, that's 200. That machine is outputting 400. Trying to combine them all and then split them and completely fill up the pipe with the 600 just does not seem like a good idea. So instead, I'll have this machine feed into these two, and then this machine will feed into this one. And that way they will all deal with 200 dark matter residue. So the way I can do that is 200 divided by the default rate of 150 and then multiply by 100 for the percentage. Except for I should put power shards in there first. 200 divided by 150 multiplied by 100. There's my 200. Each one of these machines will need 40 time crystals. So I'll just need one splitter. Doesn't get any easier than that. So thankfully with this, the numbers worked out really nicely. And then the last one. So this one can also just stay at 100% because that's exactly what this needs. So I technically could have placed one of the converters and overclocked it to 200%, but I kind of like the idea of just having two machines, and then that way, instead of having to split the pipe across the three machines, I can keep it even more simple. And technically it saves a little bit on power. Not that I'm really trying to save on power. And then for this one, we've got the magnetic field generators. The neural quantum processors are coming from right here. Excited photonic matter is right next to it. The very last part, the superposition oscillators, will be coming by train. And that right there is all of the machines I need to make my 16 AI expansion servers, with an added bonus of 240 dark matter crystals per minute. But there is still quite a bit to do, because I went through a whole list of things that I need to bring in by train. That's the next project. I need to start bringing in plastic, rubber, aluminum sheets, the trigons, time crystals, and the superposition oscillators. Before I start working on the trains, I thought it'd be best just to figure out where it's all going. Here is the sushi belt. If we follow it, nothing gets branched off on the first section, but once we get to the second one, very first thing that's going to get split off is the caterium ingots. That's going to head off this way and then make the fuse quick wire. And then next we have another smart splitter to branch off the steel beams. And those are used for the versatile framework. I guess I haven't talked about that part yet, but the reason I'm bringing in steel beams is there's a fantastic recipe. The aluminum beam is one of my favorites. Just one aluminum ingot creates one steel beam, which is so much nicer than the standard 4 steel ingots, which means I need both iron and coal. I've already got tons of aluminum ingots laying around, so if I only need 60 steel beams, this just seems like a great way to do it. The ingots themselves only stack to 100, but the steel beams stack to 200. So for something like this, it's ideal to turn them into the steel beams first, because then they'll take up half as much space in the train. And then we move on to the next section where it just skips everything, and then we go up to here where everything else goes pretty much. So first thing is rubber. Second one is the aluminum sheets. Third one is the sulfur. And then those head off to the right manufacturers. And then the last two. So this one splits off the trigons. And then this one, time crystals to the right. And then the superposition oscillators should be the very last thing. And then those head on up to the final quantum encoder. Very straightforward for the load balancing on the time crystals. I only need 1/4 of them to go to the neural quantum processors. 3/4 of them go on to make the dark matter crystals. We trace the sushi belt all the way back to the train station. I've added a whole bunch of labels. So I know the 37.5 iron gets plugged into there, and then the 246 there. And then here's the iron and the copper amounts that'll make the copper alloy ingots. And then this one has all of these. There's one part that's not going to fit on this sushi belt, and that's the plastic. That one is just going to have its own, and it's probably going to plug in somewhere over here. But I did already lay out the load balancer for it, so let me show you. The plastic will probably come up here and then have to snake around things. And then I figured this right here was a good amount of space, and it turned out to not even be enough. I just needed a couple more foundations of space. It looks a little bit funny, but it gets the job done. And part of the reason why it got so big is it's going to 3 different places. The bulk of it is used in the circuit boards, and then 160 is needed for classic batteries, and then only 42 are used for the plastic AI limiters. Here's the ridiculous diagram to go along with this. 293, not the best number. So we're going to loop back 7 so that I can work with 300. So we'll have 300 onto here, split it into thirds, 100, 100, 100. We're going to take this 100, and then this right here is a 5-way split, so merger and then the 2 splitters. And then that way I can split off 80 pretty easily, which, because all of these numbers on the diagram are divided by 2, the 80 is actually the 160. And then we've got a 100 and a 100. So this line has 20 and I need 1. That's basically what all of this is to split off that 1. And then we've also got the 7 that we need to loop back over here. Normally with these ratio splits, I'm taking 1 input and I've only got to split it into 2 different numbers, and those are almost always pretty straightforward and much smaller. But if you need to start splitting it into 3 or 4 different amounts, then they can just all of a sudden start getting pretty big. But I love these things. Just watching all the parts move around, and then with the throughput monitors, you get to see and make sure that everything actually works the way you designed it. It's fantastic. And you know, I think things are just going way too smooth. Let's take a look at our power. Oh, well, turns out I didn't fix it. Welcome back. It has been about 6 hours. Yeah, this one took kind of a long time because just such a tiny screw up backed up so many factories. It was pretty awful, I'm not gonna lie. And the worst part is, this isn't even the first time I've made this mistake. It just makes it sting even more. So let me show you. We are back over here where I am manufacturing the power shards and the alien power matrix. Alright, so now is your chance. Make your guess. What did I screw up? Alright, now I'm going to go in and show you. So if we head on to the second floor, it was this floor right here. What I forgot to do was set up this smart splitter. I just placed it, and the only setting it had was any. I never changed this to overflow, which meant that obviously the packager backed up, this backed up because it was completely full of the power shards, and then the power shards completely backed up to here, and then they backed up through the machines. So the nice part is the alien power matrix never stopped because I had more than enough power shards, but it was just a crazy domino effect. And the crazy part is it's not actually anything in this factory. It was because all of a sudden then I wasn't using as many of the package rocket fuel. And so that meant in here, this packager wasn't going through as many, which meant the constructor wasn't going through as many. And it was the aluminum that got all the way backed up. And then once this train backed up with its aluminum, it started to throw off all of the load balancing that I had done over there. So that ended up backing up the load balancers over here, which also ended up backing up the copper because a lot of that is used to make the aluminum sheets or the casings. And then I found one other ticking time bomb that I hadn't cleared out before. And that was definitely just my fault from the first time that it all crashed, was this train right here. Once the thermal propulsion rocket factory backed up too much, this train ended up getting too full. And if we just go directly below, it goes straight into a smart splitter. And so since the rubber is coming in the highest quantity, that was the first container to completely fill up. So once that one filled up, it wasn't able to start emptying the actual train fast enough because only a little bit of rubber would get used. And then once the factory stopped again because it was throwing off the ratios, then it just kept backing up and getting worse and worse and worse. And so I just had to clear out just a ton of the extra material. So now none of these containers have more than, I think, half. Well, about half. So now they've got plenty of wiggle room again. So once that got cleared out, now the train runs fine. But backed up long enough that I needed to go clear out everything from pretty much all of those factories as well. And somehow there was just basically a trickle-down effect throughout most of the world, to be completely honest. Just about every train station that was dealing with aluminum had way too much. So it definitely took a while because even things that haven't ever crashed before, like the actual aluminum factory, It didn't really crash, but it got so backed up that the machines weren't running efficiently anymore. And so it was a giant pain, and there's probably still something that I didn't notice and didn't get cleared out. But I went through almost all of my factories, and they should all be working pretty well now. And I am crossing my fingers that that is the last major screw up. We're getting so close to the end, but somehow I just keep making it longer and longer. I'm going to head back to the grassy field, and we can finally get started on these trains. Because it felt like it just worked so well for maximizing the space, even though I've probably got way more space under here than I actually need, I'm just going to make a bunch of these unload balancers into blueprints. Or rather, I should say, I already have, so let me show you. I need 8 superposition oscillators per minute, and the great thing about this is I also need 4 for the magnetic field generators. And sure, I could redo this and maybe make it a little bit more streamlined, but what I am going to do is just add a splitter right here and then a merger there, so I can just cut the 8 in half, because these two belts aren't equal. That's not 4 and 4. That's 6 and that's 8. So the easiest thing is just to add a splitter in the merger, and that'll be the 4 that I need for the magnetic field generators. But pretty basic, just taking 60, splitting it a couple times until we get down to 10, and then just doing a 5-way split, and then looping back the other 52. Here is my 43 with storage blueprint. Same sort of thing, we take 60, we split it into thirds, so we've got 20, 20, and then 20 on that bottom belt, so immediately we've got 40, and then the rest of this is to split off 3, so we've got the 43, and then the 17 gets looped back into the storage container. Every once in a while I luck out, and they end up being a little bit smaller. So this is how I get 140. We start with the Mark III belt, so we've got 270, split that into thirds, so we've got 90, 90, and 90. So once we've got 90, then the rest of this is to split off 50, and then we're looping back 130. Next up, the 144 balancer, and this is going to get used for rubber. 144 means that we need to start with the Mark III belt, but that's easy to work with because we can split into thirds and 90, 90, and 90. And then with this 90, it's a 5-way split, and so this is getting the 3/5. So if we do 90 divided by 5 times 3, that's the 54, plus 90, there's my 144. And then we just loop back the remainder. The last one that I'm going to have to build is the one for plastic. And as you can see by the diagram here, it's a little bit longer than most of the other ones and won't easily fit in here. Although maybe I could have got it to fit just without the storage or something. But since it's only one, and I doubt I'm going to have to do that number again, I'll just do that one manually when I get to the plastic. For this, what I'm going to do, because this is just easy, I think I'm just going to give myself 3 foundations worth of space. So if I lay down 4 and then just delete these 3. It should still give me plenty of space to go right above these miners. And I've still got plenty of headroom up here in case I need a belt to go right above any of these storage containers. So I think that'll be enough space for up here, and then if I need it for some reason, I've still got more space underneath to work with. Now I'm going to go around to the different train stations that I need to visit and figure out which one is going to go in which freight car. And I may even need more than one train station, but we'll see. Because it would be nice if I can have one train stop at a couple different places, but there's a good chance that I won't be able to stop everywhere, especially with the amount of plastic that I need. So let's go ahead and just jump ahead a little bit, and I'll show you what the train system looks like. The majority of things that are being brought in by train are now up and running. Let's go ahead and start with the plastic and the rubber. I'll probably still need to add on one more train station here, just for a future factory. But I might as well convert my old personal train station and put it to good use because it is right up here in the front. The way this works is the first 2 are still completely empty. This train is going to have 4 freight cars in total. The third one will be the rubber. The fourth one will be the plastic. Let's go downstairs and I'll show you what I did. Just got the small storage containers as a buffer on this side. And then just a little bit of load balancing for each one. For the plastic, that bit is coming from over here, and this was the 920 that I had left over from the last time I needed plastic. So that comes over here. And I split the 920, 586, and then the 334 continues to get sunk. And then I'm doing the same thing with the rubber. I've got the 640 left over from the last time I needed to do load balancing. And here's the ratio split in the diagram to split this 640 into 496, which is still going to a sink, and then the 144 that is headed off to the train. Thankfully, neither of these were too bad to build. Next stop is the Rocky Desert. There are two things that I needed to put on a train. This train station was already here, but I added one more freight platform. But I lucked out, and this first train only has one freight car, and so it's just not going to be able to pick up this second one. And for my new train that's coming here, I am going to have it so it has two locomotives in the front, and then it's actually 3 freight cars. I don't need the second locomotive for the speed or, to get up hills or anything like that. It's solely to make sure that I don't pick up any here, because if it's not a freight car, then I can't pick those up. The magnetic field generators are just headed into here, which was the last little open spot on this little section right here. So I was happy I finally got to fill that in. So if we follow these back, they have just been sinking on this top floor for a very long time now. So I just needed to send them down through the factory, and then I just belted them right next to this one all the way back to the train station. So that was really easy. The superposition oscillators, I needed to make a slight change. I was originally sending 6 to my storage in the dimensional depot because that's just kind of how I thought the numbers were going to work out. When it came time to actually start making the AI expansion servers, I realized I could make more and it would only cost me 4 superposition oscillators, and let's be honest, I don't need 6 going to storage. So instead, I changed my plan. If we follow this back down to the basement, I am making 80, and they are going into this load balancer here. And then here at the end, I was sending the 6 off to storage, but now what I'm doing is splitting that into thirds, so now 2 goes to storage, and then I'm recombining those 4 with the rest of it, and then sending that into the train. Which meant I did need to change my balancer that I already had built for 74, because now I'm sending 78. I already had a balancer down below to split off the 30 that I needed to go to this train. And so this is one of those times where making them blueprints really paid off, because I was able to just delete that entire balancer all in one go and replace it with the new one in less than 30 seconds and get all the belts rehooked up. So if we head down here, it is still pretty crowded. No surprise. So here are the superposition oscillators. Here are the new 30. And that goes into the container and then off to the first section of the train. And then the 8 are going along into a merger and combining with the magnetic field generators. Yep, there they are. They head into the container and then the second freight car. And my remaining 40 continue to get sunk until that last project. So back here at the Grassy Fields, that takes care of the first 3 freight cars. But I am using the very first one also. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's coming in here. It's just 1 locomotive and 1 freight platform. These are all coming from the eastern dune forest, and that's why it can transport so many things, because the trip really isn't too far. It's coming from just right over there. It's not too far, but teleporters are even faster. And again, I am just repurposing my old personal train station. And now we've got the EDF-0. Thankfully, the Caterium ingots, that's just 1 load balancer. I had 120 something already here, so I just needed to split off the 43. The Trigons are actually even easier. And then the other 2, well, that's where it got a little bit more tricky. But let's just go straight down and I can show you. Here is the 1 storage container that I need for the buffer. I've got 120 Trigons coming from the existing load balancer, so that was already done. Just needed to send that 1 belt in over here. The Caterium ingots are just being fed from underneath because they had a little bit of a journey. They are being balanced at the very end of the train station. So let's just follow this back real quick and I'll show you that balancer first. From the last time I needed Caterium, I had 123 ingots left over. So those are heading along into here. And they head into my 123 into 80 and 43 balancer. As you can tell, it's a blueprint, so it's much easier to build this outside and then be able to snug it up right next to everything, and there's still no clipping this way. That leaves me with 80 ingots that head on this way, meet up with the leftover quartz that I still have, and those go off into a sink. And here are the 43 that go onto this train. For the last two, aluminum sheets and the steel beams. For that, let's head over this way. Since it was getting so cramped, I decided to add on just another little section to the train station. I probably could have found enough space, but it just sometimes just not worth it. So I just added a few foundations and then some pretty basic decorating, some stairs and some walls and some windows and whatnot. And then just frame floors up here. And that way I can see the machines, but there's actually even more going on underneath it. If we head below, I had 211 aluminum ingots, and now I have 11. But the split for these was pretty easy. The beams, each constructor needs 30, and then each assembler needs 70 for the total of 140. Only having 11 ingots left over feels pretty good, although I do probably still have a ton of copper that I could use. But that means that I'm almost completely done with this train station. Oh, thank goodness. And there's one of the trains now. I definitely made sure that I gave myself enough room that when the second train stops, there's plenty of space for it to just wait behind the train station and it won't block any of the other traffic. Now, I just have one more train to get started. So what I'm going to do here, still need to add my little label signs, but the first one is going to go get the time crystals. The second one is a bright yellow. As I'm sure you probably guessed, it's picking up sulfur. With the radar tower there, let's see what kind of coverage we have. Of course, it's just outside of the range. So as you can see, I've added a train station down here, because that is pretty much the closest sulfur, I think. There actually might be another one somewhere over here. I only need 120 sulfur, and this out here is an impure node, so I think this is a good use for the impure node, whereas the other one up here is, I think, normal or pure. So I'd rather leave that for something else if I needed it. Don't even need power shards. A Mark III miner on the impure node will output the 120, and that's all I need. It goes into a simple setup, just the storage container as the buffer, and then the second freight platform. But I decided to have this overhang the edge by quite a bit, so I try to get a little creative with some supports down here. And to do this, I just zoop down a foundation, and then of course, I grab my trusty beams. So I picked the middle of each foundation so that I could keep it kind of consistent. It's much easier if you pick a different foundation than asphalt, and then just change the material afterward if you want them. I just picked a consistent spot, placed the beam, and then for one side, I just went to the same spot over and over and over again. And then I did the same thing on this side. I just picked the same spot on this side of the foundation. And then once the beam is there, so like for this, if I decided to do the corner instead, point there, it doesn't go down all the way, but I can snap the pillar to the bottom, and now I can just zoop there and zoop there. So I've got the train station, but I am missing some rails. What I think I'm going to do is use a little bit of the existing rail line that I built out already. It's not like this one line gets used all that often. That way I don't have to add another branch off the main line. I can use this same one, and then I'll just extend it straight a little bit longer and then have it curve all the way back to the sulfur. But going back, well, I'm going to make sure that this is the second stop, and so it only needs to connect to the main rail line going one direction, facing back to this train station. Yeah, like that. So it just heads on a little bit, then goes straight, and go up a little bit, and then into the train station. And here's our train now. And it is going to wait here for not too long, but I wanted to try something. If I take a look at the train and edit the timetable, at the time crystal pickup, it's just set up like normal. It just picks up the time crystals, doesn't unload anything. Pretty standard. Then once it comes here, now I changed it to freight wagon is fully loaded or unloaded. And then wait for 0 seconds. Only load sulfur, doesn't unload anything. And then Grassy Fields, it just drops it off. Even though I'm bringing in 160 time crystals per minute and only 120 sulfur, the sulfur is actually the one that fills up quicker. Since time crystals stack to 200 and sulfur is only 100, this is 1.2 stacks per minute, whereas the time crystals are only 0.8 stacks per minute. So by having the train set for this one to wait for its fully loaded or unloaded, in the time that it takes the miner to produce enough, and there it goes, to fill up one freight car, the time crystals will fill up even less. And so this is my way of having the train be able to wait in one of the train stations a little bit longer, and it just alleviates some of the traffic on the tracks. Let's just go ahead and jump in. And now it's going to head off to pick up all the time crystals. So now if we come down here, you can see I've laid out all of my unload balancers so they are nice and organized. The second train was just simple. 120 for sulfur, doesn't get any easier. And then the 160 balancer was the nice and short one. But those come along this way and then get grouped up with pretty much everything else. So like I said, plastic is the only thing that's going off onto its own sync. Everything else is on one belt going to this one for now. But I have it all set up so that I just need to delete the smart splitters and they will head on into the factory. I like it when my logistics floors look like this and not the just absolute chaos that I've created in some of my other ones. And that is everything that I needed to have brought in. I've got the iron already running over here. The copper is on and sinking, and that is coming from just around the corner. Good old Grassy Fields has plenty of iron and copper. They may not be pure nodes, but there's a lot of them. Well, it is about that time. The only things I have left are running power throughout the factory and the good old decorating phase. The save is currently at 513 hours and 42 minutes. So a few hours for me, a couple seconds for you, and we'll be back. Welcome back to my new AI expansion server factory. The save is currently at 519 hours and 38 minutes. So it took me about as long to decorate all this as fixing half of my problems earlier. Not too bad. And it is in the description, but in case you're wondering, I am using the Manta Rays mod, because the Grassy Fields is one of those locations where if you don't use that mod and you're not super careful about your planning about where your factories are going, that moth is going to fly straight through it. But with this mod, it will change its path, so if there's something in the way, it just goes up and over it. And I'll be honest, I really think that should just be how it works in the game. But that's just me. So normally I would start with all the farthest parts of the factory, but I've pretty much covered everything that's not right here. I did even finish off the train station this time. As far as the outside design goes, it's pretty basic. I used a lot of the fix-it walls so I could get the colors that I wanted. They're just so much easier. The steel walls you can't change the color of at all, and the concrete is just not very flexible. I really wish that we had the same options to paint the concrete walls that we do the concrete foundations, where you can kind of play with the numbers and get them that super bright color. It just doesn't work with concrete walls, but that is where the fix-it foundations and walls come in real handy. You've got a lot of options with colors. Since I built this on a slope, I really wanted to try to incorporate the slope as much as I could. So I started with building the stairs on the inside, and then I've got the ramps that go up right next to the stairs. So once I figured out where all of the stairs and all of these bottom ramps were going to go, I just decided to do the opposite on that. So however long I have as a straight, I just do the same thing up here, and then the ramp is on the opposite side. So I end up with the same, I guess, shape. They're just pretty much all different sizes for the different windows. And then just a normal boring square one at the back. But hey, there's only one of them this way. And I went back and forth, and I probably should have changed it. So my thinking was on most of these, it fits really well. So I have this piece that I made a blueprint. It's just a bunch of foundations, just a few of the 4-meter label signs. So on most of these, I decided to just center it on this flat section, and that makes sense and it looked good to me. There's this one window where it's only got that one little section, and this one looks a little bit funny. Probably would have made more sense to just center it on the overall window, but that's what I went with. Who knows? If it really drives me nuts, I can just delete it, move it over. And then for the roof, it is more blueprints. This one is just some 2-meter foundations and then some up corner ramps, then ramps, some label signs, and then this part is a little tricky. So if you've ever tried, these don't normally snap to ramps like that. And if you hold control, it doesn't work either. So let me just place a ramp here. And then, you guessed it, we grab the beam. If I snap to the middle there and switch it to diagonal, I can snap it to the top. It'll snap to the beam, so I just got it right in the middle, and then I held control and paged it down just a 1/2 meter. And once you get it there, you can delete the beam, and that matches the curve much better. There's a couple of sections with those blueprints, and then this is, of course, more blueprints. Just like I did over in, I think it was the Rocky Desert, I just made a way for the water to kind of pass through. And making these kind of blueprints pretty easy. Just hit H, nudge it over, do another one, and they're basically just 1 meter apart from each other. And so then you blueprint that, and it makes it a whole lot easier to place all of these at once. Especially because these are 2 meters deep. So it's actually 2 of them stacked on top of each other. And so I was able to just fill in a lot of these gaps with that, and it was kind of a nice way to switch it up so that some of it's window, but it's just not all windows. It's definitely different than all the other factories in my save, as we can see just like 6 towers in the background. So I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Let's go ahead and head inside and look at all the other things that I've done. We've got the 2 train stations that were already there, and I went ahead and added an extra 3rd one. I am making a whole bunch of extra dark matter crystals, and I'm going to eventually want that to go to a future factory, so I figured just having the extra train station in here would be a good idea. Hopefully I don't need another one, but if I do, this is an easy enough pattern for the wall to just delete and extend if I need to. We've got the portal, and then the sink for the final product, and the factory, but before we get to that, let's just head downstairs real quick. Just a short trip, but it takes us down to the logistics floor. And then there's one more that'll take me all the way down to the iron if I wanted to. So in just a minute when we start things, we're going to delete those sinks. And then delete these sinks. And that's pretty much all I need to do. The final product is going to be showing up right here. And so they will collect in the storage container. Once that fills up, they will just head on into the sink, which is also where the dark matter crystals are popping up for right now, joining the space elevator part and heading to the sink. As we could kind of see from the outside, I just have a line of foundations all along the side, just going from the coated concrete to the stairs and just kind of alternating. But when we get to the top of each set of stairs, there's an extra little platform, so I can run across here, and I've got a really good view of everything from the previous floor. And I should still be able to see all of the throughput monitors right underneath. Hopefully. And this way I've got plenty of places that I can get from one side of the factory to the other. So as you can see, I've got a couple of just random sinks placed in here. These are just temporary, only here for the startup process, because for things like this, the Caterium ingots are just going to come in on a Mark 1 belt, because I don't mind that it takes a little bit longer for it to start up and it get here. But it does mean that the copper ingots are going to show up way faster. And to prevent all of the machines and then the load balancer from backing up, it's easier just to have them sync. Once the Caterium shows up, I'll just delete this. Same with the steel beams here. I need a few things being produced before this assembler is needed. So those will just sync for the first couple minutes. And then I try to add just lots of throughput monitors. I just like being able to see how much is on the belts. I think it's just such a cool addition, and I don't think I've really seen a performance issue with adding them all over the place in a factory. So until I do, why not? And then we're up to the final sections. Since everything is already turned on, the pipes are already completely full with the excited photonic matter. And one last temporary sync for the trigons and the time crystals, because it'll be a little bit until those get needed. And after today, I've learned my lesson. I don't want my sushi belts to back up. The dark matter crystals are going to get grouped up, and just so I didn't have to use a lift, they are just going on a journey all the way around. Oh, actually, there's one last sync over here I kind of forgot about, because I want the time crystals to be closer, because when I delete that one, it just takes a while for the time crystals to make their way all the way over here. And in that time, those quantum encoders will have already started to produce the dark matter residue, so I'd much rather the time crystals show up just a little bit sooner. But the final product is the outside belt. All of the dark matter crystals will meet up with the AI expansion servers, and then they go on their journey all the way back down to the train station. And let's go ahead and head down there and get it started. Let's see how long it takes this factory to get up and running. Wow, those things get made fast. Look at them go. And now that the dark matter residue is filling up the pipes, particle accelerators are going to stop and start a few times probably. And there's the 256 I was looking for. That is 16 AI expansion servers and 240 dark matter crystals per minute. Already got 25 in the storage container. This is gonna fill up really fast. Oh, a whopping 16 minutes? Yeah, I'll take it. But the best part is, once I have the 256 that I need, these things are worth almost 600,000 coupon points. And so in a matter of no time, this will be spitting out 9.5 million coupon points per minute. We did just add a few things, and, well, now this is happening. I think this happens when you overclock machines before they get powered on, and then it kind of messes with the max consumption number. Please feel free to correct me in the comments. So I would think that the max consumption would be like even what it would peak at its highest, but clearly I'm going above my max consumption, which is a little weird. But still got plenty of space. And the production is finally nice and flat. Ah, that feels good. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for being here. And a special thank you to everyone that likes, comments, and hypes the videos. It really does help. I have automated 8 Biochemical Sculptors, and 16 AI expansion servers per minute. In just a couple minutes, I'll have 3 out of the 4 space elevator parts done. Ballistic warp drives are up next. With this being the last major factory of the save, I'd like to scale things up just a little. Look forward to that, and thanks for watching.